Peace, everybody. Welcome to Capital Combat. The name says it all. I'm Hakeem Branch,
Rob Jarrell.
and today we're going to talk about the first boxing event of the year. Happy New Year to everybody. It's going to be Gervonta Tank Davis taking on Hector Luis Garcia for one of the 135-pound titles. We'll go into that the particulars in a little bit, but that's going down this Saturday on Showtime pay-per-view in Upper Marlboro, Maryland at the MGM Grand. Uh, there are a few other fights on this card. I'm gonna let Rob talk about who is fighting on there. We're not gonna get it too much into those fights, but we still want to let you know who is fighting, so you make an informed decision on whether or not you want to purchase it. All of the fighters are either up and coming or established champions, so it looks interesting on paper. But I'm gonna give it to Rob and let him take it away.
All right. What's going on, everyone? So it looks like we're starting off 2023 with a bang. They put a lot of names on this card as far as the A side of the pay-per-view. Of course, we got Tank Davis taking on Hector Garcia for the WBA lightweight strap. But also on the card, we have Rashidi Speedy Ellis, undefeated. We got Boots Ennis, also undefeated. We got Brandon Lee at 140, also undefeated. And I think to actually start it off for maybe the second fight of the card, we got Demetrius Andre, who is a very well-known veteran who's also undefeated. And he's looking to take that step up with someone who's actually known to the masses, or at least a little bit more known than the other opponents of the other fighters that I mentioned in Damon Nicholson. So we should have a great start to this pay-per-view if all of those fights hold up and they are on the actual main card. So I'm expecting all those guys to win. They're the A side for a reason. They're undefeated for a reason. I don't see any reason that they don't remain undefeated. So let's go ahead and move into the creme de la creme, the main event. The guy we're actually all here to see, and that's Gervonta Tank Davis, who is playing the hometown kid and hero because this fight is taking place in Maryland, going against a potential spoiler in the Dominican boxer and current WBA 130-pound champ, Hector Garcia.
Air
This is going to
quotes.
be, huh?
I was saying air quotes because he's the 135-pound champion, but Devin Haney is the undisputed champ. Don't know how well it's boxing sanctioning bodies, so it is what it is. But
And
sorry,
it's the
go ahead.
worst. And it's the worst of the most egregious offenders of boxing sanctioned bodies in the WBA.
Facts.
But this guy, Garcia, who is undefeated, kind of burst on the scene when he took out Isaac Avilar.
That was the
Then,
first time I saw him on TV.
right, first time on TV. Then he filled in for Roger Gutierrez, who was a 130-pound WBA champ, and taking on Chris Colbert, who was trying to challenge for his first title. And it looks like Garcia just wanted it more, so he took out the undefeated Chris Colbert. So that moved him on to the champ, Roger Gutierrez, took him out, and now he's fighting someone. Well, let's be honest. He's not those three guys. And I like Chris Colbert. He did everything wrong that you could do in that fight in fighting a guy like Garcia. And those mistakes that he made, that Gutierrez made, will not be made by Gervonta Davis. Not in this fight.
Yeah. Watching Garcia, he does have skill. He's got a little bit of hand speed. He's not like blazing fast. His hands aren't faster than Gervonta's. However, he knows how to place his punches. He punches in volume, and he, for a pressure fighter, I would call him more of a cute fighter, meaning he's gonna like give you some head movement. He's gonna give you some angles. His hands aren't going to be in his face all the time. He'll move them around. He's also a southpaw, which usually is a problem when you're fighting right-handed fighters. Unfortunately, Davis is also a southpaw. Um, and so those angles that you usually get, say, like a Vasily Lomachenko or Terrence Crawford, who likes to switch over to southpaw, and they get those different looks on guys. It's just like a right-hander versus a right-hander in this one. It's going to be two left-handed guys who both are underrated in boxing ability, but I think Tank's boxing ability is starting to get recognition from the pundits and the experts and the fans as well, because they're starting to see him know how to pick spots. They're starting to see him like set traps. Rolly Romero knows all about that. Leo Santa Cruz knows all about that. But he is really starting to come into his own as a fighter. And he has a lot on the line with this fight because if he wins, he gets Ryan Garcia in April, I think.
Right.
It,
I think it is
so,
April.
yeah. So, what are we looking at to see here? I'm thinking that because of the Southpaw versus Southpaw, one of the things that I saw against Avalar that gave Garcia trouble was early on, he was very susceptible to Avalar's left hand.
Mm-hmm.
Big problem if you're fighting somebody like Tank Davis, because we see what his left hand does to people.
Yeah. Um, it depends on where he wants to put this fight. Um, he's taller, he's going to have the longer reach, but because he really doesn't have that hand speed, he's got to be really precise and he has to be really sharp to throw. From what I saw, he likes to throw very sharp, straight punches, especially with his left hand. But unfortunately, he lets it lingers out there way too long. And if he's made to reach by Davis, then he's going to get countered quite a bit. In a Culver fight, now I know that's a southpaw versus the orthodox fighter. His lead hand is low. So if he does think or want to get close to Tank, because Tank has shorter arms, because he is faster, and because he is more explosive, when Garcia throws his lead hand, if he's not careful, a wide right hook will land every time. Cobra did that quite frequently on the inside. And I don't know if you saw this in the All Access, but they mentioned, the coach of Tank Davis mentioned that the body would be there as well. So I looked at that, I listened to that, and I looked at the Cobra fight. Cobra's able to drop an uppercut and a body shot with the right and come over the top with the left because Garcia is probably looking for that body shot, but he always wants to lead with that right hand in response. But because you're not bringing it up and he likes to let it low, get his opponent looking at the low right hand or adjust a little bit lower. He wants that to be the focus. You can't do that with Davis because he does set those traps, because he is quicker. And let's be honest, he will sleep you in a second.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Romero, look at Barrios, pick a name, he will sleep you. I don't think if your name isn't Isaac Pitbull Cruz, you can get slept.
and that's exactly where I was going was Pitbull Cruz. In that fight, Davis was kind of thought to have taken him lightly, and let Cruz, kind of bully him a lot during that fight. And I want to say that I think Davis learned from that. However, there's two things keeping me from thinking that Garcia can replicate that success that Cruz had. One, he is a 130-pound fighter that's moving up to this fight. Cruz is almost like a career lightweight. He's had trouble making 135, and even though he's shorter, he's a pretty stocky guy, and he's a big guy. So with them having so different contrasting styles, Cruz also has the high guard and he throws all of his punches 100%. Garcia likes to set things up, like you said, with that lead hand. He likes to try to start up in the volume as the fight goes on. But unfortunately, some of those things that we also pointed out about him leaving his hands low, about him not being as fast as Davis, he may not make it to those late rounds. He was dropped in the first round by Avalar with a left hand, and it was mainly because he was caught cold. But you can't get caught cold with Davis, because if you get caught cold, you're getting put out. So I'm really, I'm hoping that we get a competitive fight, but I'm not really seeing, based on what I've seen from Garcia, that it will be a competitive fight. He's going to try, but I just don't think it's going to end up being that way.
Yeah, the one thing I have noticed about Tank is that he has a sense of urgency, but he doesn't rush to try to get a guy out of there in the first 2 or 3 rounds. If you look at the Romero fight, he knocked him out in what, 6?
Yeah, the 6th round.
The Barrios fight, it was in the 11th, if I'm not mistaken. It
10th
was
or 11th. Let me see.
10th or 11th. Santa Cruz, I want to say it was in the middle round. So while we think he can simply just knock those guys out early, he seems to be much more patient than he was early in his career. So he's not just swinging wildly. And there was a time where he was just swinging for the fences. A lot of times, a lot of powerful young fighters do fall in love with their own power, and it makes them make mistakes. We saw that in what's the fight that not Lopez, not Juan Manuel Lopez. I'm thinking of the guy he should have fought.
Gamboa?
Gamboa. Now he did beat Gamboa, but it showed what happened when you rush and you kind of are a little too impatient, especially against a guy who has a high pedigree, who is just as fast, who is just as powerful. But let's be honest, he was a little worn in that fight too. It was just too late in his career.
Yeah.
The other thing about Pitbull Cruz versus Garcia, Garcia is, again, much taller, much lankier, while Cruz, being shorter than Davis, has a leverage advantage. I think at that point, being stockier, having those tree trunk legs, he is more apt to move not Garcia, Davis in a position, bully him around, really get up under him. Garcia does not have that advantage. He will be volume and get on the inside, but I think we've seen something similar to that. Maybe not quite to the skill level of someone like Leo Santa Cruz, who will get on the inside, who will jab his way in, who does have kind of a high guard, but a bit of a leaky defense at the same time. And Garcia definitely is very leaky. You can really get around that guard fairly easily. And again, because that lead hand is either carried low or never brought back into defensive position, he's going to get tagged. So really look for his right eye to look pretty bad.
If it's a sustained beating, yeah. But I mean, I can see that, this being like a one-shot knockout also. How many rounds do you think this is gonna go?
Garcia's tough. I think he has a lot of resiliency in him, but I'm gonna say 8.
Okay. I'm not really a betting guy, and I'm not super familiar with how betting odds go, but I think the under 8 rounds, if that's part of the thing, I would go for that.
Mm-hmm.
6 to 8 rounds is probably being generous, depending on how much data Tank can take in before he starts to really open up. Like you said, versus Romero, it took him like about 4 rounds before he really started punching against Romero, and it only took him 2 rounds from that point to finish him. So if he's kind of got his plan down and he's got Garcia's rhythm down in those first 3 rounds, then it's not going 5. If he can catch him early, then it'll be even earlier. But I'm thinking between 6 to 8 rounds, the most generous for Davis.
So I know the Culver fight went 12.
Yes.
The Avalar fight, it only went 8. Am I correct?
10, 8 or
It went
10. Let
10.
me look real quick. I got it up. Avalar was 8 rounds.
But it was 8 rounds in a 10-round fight.
No, 8 round unanimous decision. Then he get 12 rounds against Colbert, and then 12 rounds against Gutierrez.
So that's the other thing that kind of scares me when you fight a guy like Davis. Unless you're a Mayweather type fighter, you don't have a lot of knockouts, but you can pretty much figure out the time where you're basically putting a sustained beating on someone. When you get a lot of wins and you don't get a lot of knockouts, and you're fighting basically a skilled knockout artist, and you're not someone who, again, like Pitbull Cruz, who you may make it 12 rounds, but you just felt like you wrestled a bull for 12 rounds and you're exhausted. It just makes me think that you will not be able to hurt him enough for him to deter him. And at this point, he was able to do it with Avalar. He was able to do it with Colbert. He was able to do it with Gutierrez. Again, different monster. I just don't think he'll be able to hurt him enough just to keep him off of him.
Yeah.
Or to deter him from even stepping inside. And like you said, he sets traps. So you may get those couple of licks on him, but what happens when he tags you and you literally have to back up against the rope or the ring or just try to stay out of harm's way?
Right. And so, yeah, with all that in mind, we are both going Davis knockout. So let us know what you think in the comment section. Drop us your thoughts on the fight. How do you think Tank Davis gets it done? Do you think Garcia comes in with the upset? How does he pull it off? Let us know. You can reach us on any of the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Capital Combat. You can also shoot us an email, capitalcombat@gmail.com, if you'd like to shoot us some emails. Either way, make sure you follow us. Make sure that you like this video, subscribe, because we are going to watch the fight and then try to get a recap video out based on what we thought happened versus what actually happened. And then, talk about what's next, which we already know is Ryan Garcia if Davis wins. So hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can get notified when we do make videos. And Rob, you got a video talking about the New Year's plans, right?
Right. Just ringing in the new year.
All right. So stay tuned for that as well. And we'll catch you in the next video. Till then, everybody, fight on.
Round one, and you've already lost. They don't seem to see that everything we've done is coming and gone. My fists are on fire. I perform till I perspire. My demons are in a rage. Keep thinking that it's a game. I kick crime, hurricane. I told them I don't play. I'm liquid.
Black Street Fighter.